All right, everybody, welcome back. We're diving up today, getting into some really cool stuff happening in the AI world.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're looking at this new algorithm. It's called model-based transfer learning.
Oh, yeah.
MBTL, they call it for short.
Yeah.
So we're going to unpack what it is, how it works, why it's such a big deal, and what it might mean for, well, everything, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really changing things.
Okay, so first things first.
Okay.
Let's set the stage. AI training, especially for complex tasks, stuff that has tons of variations.
Right, right.
That's always been a huge, huge challenge.
Huge. Yeah.
Like traditionally, you've got basically two options, neither of them great.
Yeah.
One, you train a separate model for every single scenario you can think of, which is
That's a lot of data.
a ton of data, computationally expensive, takes forever.
Yeah.
Or two, you try to train one model to do it all,
Right.
which we've seen it just
Doesn't work.
doesn't really work that well.
You end up with something that's mediocre at best.
Mediocre, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Across the board.
So think of it like trying to teach someone to drive,
Yeah. Okay.
but you're trying to teach them to drive in every single city in the world all at once.
Whoa. Yeah. All the different rules and
Different rules, different layouts,
different everything.
total recipe for disaster.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
So that's where MBTL steps in, right?
Exactly.
It's like, okay, instead of just throwing everything at the AI and hoping for the best,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be smart about this.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to pick the best tasks to train on first
Right. The most important ones.
and kind of build from there.
Yeah. It's about making every step of the training process count.
Okay, so best tasks. What does that actually mean? How do we figure out what those are?
So imagine you're trying to learn something really complicated, right? Like, I don't know, astrophysics or something.
Okay.
You wouldn't just dive into the most complex theories first, right?
Maybe not. No.
You'd start with the basics, the fundamental concepts.
Yeah.
You'd build that foundation first. And then once you have that solid understanding,
Okay.
you can start tackling the more difficult stuff.
It makes sense.
That's essentially what MBTL does.
It figures out the astrophysics basics for AI.
Exactly. It identifies the tasks that are like the building blocks for understanding the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
By training on those first, the model gets a much deeper understanding,
Okay.
which makes it way easier to learn new related tasks later on.
So less data overall.
Way less.
And faster.
Much faster, yeah.
I mean, that's huge.
It is.
Like in the real world, what does that even look like?
Well, think about it. We can develop and deploy these really sophisticated AI solutions.
Yeah.
In a fraction of the time it used to take.
Okay.
And at a fraction of the cost.
That's wild.
It means we can innovate faster.
Mm-hmm.
Make this technology more accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
And even tackle problems that we thought were, too complex or too expensive to even try to solve before.
Wow. So less data, faster learning, potentially lower costs. It almost sounds too good to be true.
I know, right?
But it's all thanks to this MBTL design.
It's a really clever approach.
And there's another piece to this too, right?
Yeah.
This whole zero-shot transfer learning thing.
Yeah.
So that basically means a model trained for one specific task
Mm-hmm.
can then adapt to a related task, but without any additional training.
Exactly.
Hold on. So you're telling me
Yeah.
the AI can take what it's learned and apply it to something totally new, but related
Mm-hmm.
without ever having seen it before.
That's the beauty of it. It's like instead of just memorizing a bunch of examples, it's actually learning how to learn.
Okay, so going back to our traffic example,
Right.
a model trained with MBTL, it could not only manage the traffic lights,
Mm-hmm.
but it could also say, advise drivers on the best speed limits.
Exactly.
Even though it's never been specifically trained for that, because
Right.
it can just kind of figure it out.
Yeah, it can apply what it knows about traffic flow patterns
Yeah.
and use that to make smart recommendations about speed.
Okay, so this is why everyone's calling this a revolution,
Yeah, it's a game changer.
right, in AI training.
Absolutely.
But there's this other piece that I think is really interesting too. You mentioned earlier that the design of MBTL is relatively straightforward.
It is. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
why is that important?
Well, because the easier it is for developers to understand
Right.
and implement, the more likely it is that we'll see it adopted widely.
Yeah.
Right? Like if it's this super complicated, obscure thing, it's
Yeah.
going to be harder for people to pick it up and use it.
Yeah, makes sense.
But if it's relatively straightforward, elegant even,
Elegant, yeah.
then more people can start working with it,
Okay.
experimenting with it, finding new ways to apply it.
So not only is it more efficient, more adaptable, more powerful, but it's also easier to use.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It's a really powerful combination.
So it's clear that MBTL is really transforming how we approach AI training, making it more efficient, more effective, more powerful.
Yeah.
But here's a question for you all to think about. If MBTL can do all this for AI training, what other fields, what other industries could benefit from this kind of approach? Could this be like a blueprint for a whole new wave of innovation, not just in AI, but across the board? That's something to think about as we wrap up our deep dive here today. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.